Self repair has saved a lot of things over time, from going from e-waste or basic junk to giving them a new lease of life. Now I'm gonna talk about my experience, where I saved a smashed phone to becoming a second device at half the price. Technically. The phone in question is something called the Xperia 5. If you don't know what the Xperia lineup is, it's basically the phone brand that Sony has created. Over the years, they've released numerous models, but now they've released models such as the Xperia 1, the Xperia 5, and the Xperia 10. Now, the phone I have is actually the first gen model. While it may not be as popular and has definitely fallen into obscurity, especially since its updated models have garnered more attention, the phone still garners a decent amount of specs, with it having 6 gigs of RAM, a Snapdragon 855 processor, and 64 gigs of storage. The storage definitely is something else, but with external SD card support, I don't really think that's an issue for this phone. The phone also has something that differentiates itself from normal phones, with a 2K display, as well as the strange aspect ratio it comes along with. It comes in at 21:9 aspect ratio, which actually differentiates itself from most phones. It being skinny, but as well as being tall compared to other phones of the time, makes it definitely a strange phone to pick, but using the phone, it definitely feels way better in the hands. Why did I buy this phone? Because it was actually cheap. Normally, the phone only goes for about $100 to $120 if you were to buy it from Japan, $200 if you're gonna buy it new on eBay, and searching around other places gets you a similar result. Well, because this phone costed me only $14, and you can probably see why in the pictures. The listing showed that it was probably dead to the owner's eyes, considering the screen was 70% smashed and the back was cracked. This was not worth salvaging to the owner. However, for me, I could potentially just walk away with a new phone. Considering the screen only costed $60 on AliExpress, I decided to bite the bullet and buy the phone. After waiting, the phone arrived, and I decided to just do what I could while waiting for the screen to also arrive. I reset the phone using Xperia Companion, the Sony equivalent of iTunes, I assume. After resetting it, I decided to connect it to my USB-C hub, and just like that, I was able to actually use the phone for a decent time without the screen, thanks to keyboard and mouse and the USB-C connecting to my monitor. In fact, that's what I just did for the first week, use this phone as a desktop Android device. In fact, I could have just used it for a desktop Android device and gotten a pretty good mobile gaming experience for only $14. But no, I decided to actually get this to become a more functional phone. The screen eventually arrived after a week, and I also got a back glass for it, and I decided to change the housing from the red to the more glossy black design. Unfortunately, I did not record anything of me fixing this phone, because it was first off nerve-wracking, especially since this phone has little to no documentation when it comes to actually repairing it. I only had 2 videos to help me, which I understood neither, but I just relied on the video itself, and I was eventually able to disassemble the phone. After that, the phone was fixed. This was the before, and this was the after. The display was used, as I could tell there was a bit of burn-in, but it wasn't too bad, especially for the price that I got the display compared to buying a completely new phone. To be honest, after fixing up the phone, it worked mostly fine. There was a bit of an issue. It was SIM-locked at the start, but I was eventually able to actually mobile unlock the phone. And another thing about this was that this phone actually also has a hardware issue. The GPS doesn't work, well, the real-time GPS at the very least. It does actually work from time to time, you can geolocate, but apart from that, if you were to do any navigation, you wouldn't really be able to get any turn-by-turn navigation, which is a minor thing for me considering I was only using this phone for gaming. Speaking of which, the phone runs games absolutely fine. Well, I mean one game that I play at least. Blue Archive runs very good, especially at the high 60 FPS counter, and thanks to Sony's game enhancer, I was able to squeeze out some bit of performance. Phone experience is really good. I'm able to play games with a decent res, apart from certain modern titles like Honkai Star Rail, where I had to kick the quality a bit lower. But to be honest, I don't really play that game, so I'm not really too keen on it. Media playback is very good on this phone, especially since it has stereo speakers, which are a bit more quieter than my iPhone. The phone battery itself also holds really well even after the 5 years, or I assume few years that the owner has used it. Phone lasted me throughout the whole day, and the camera itself is pretty decent for the use case I have, and the camera also comes with this feature called Cinema Pro, where you can film pro video. Messing around with Cinema Pro actually does have some nifty features such as manual or autofocus, filters, and shooting in 2K or 4K. Needless to say, I'm actually able to do a lot of stuff with it, from games to media playback to using the camera. This phone experience, since this was the first Android device I've jumped in ever since 2015, has felt really good, especially since I was able to save this phone back from e-waste, considerably at not really a cheaper price. If I had bought the phone from Japan, I would have bought it for about $80, and considering the prices I fixed on this phone, the phone actually equals out. But to be honest, I really don't mind that. The fact that I was able to get the phone similarly priced, and even save it from going to e-waste, was definitely a plus for me. In the end, what is this phone actually to me? Well, gaming phone in the end. I actually just use this phone nowadays to play Blue Archive most of the time. But other than being a phone that I mainly play games on, the phone actually works very well. And if you think this phone is just a fluke, this phone was bought way back in April. As of recording this, it's actually June, and the phone still works really well. And I hope this phone lasts me a bit longer until I can actually upgrade phones. But as of now, this phone really works well, and I hope that this phone continues to last.